Good morning. Now, I know many people, when they mention Derbyshire, immediately think of the Peak District, but actually the Peak District is only in part of the county. There are other parts of Derbyshire too. And today I've come to a completely different part of the county for a complete change of scene. This is South Derbyshire, and I'm standing in front of Swarkestone Bridge. The ancient bridge at Swarkestone crosses the River Trent about 6 miles south of Derby, and was for about 300 years the Midlands' main crossing of the Trent. Currently Grade 1 listed and a scheduled ancient monument, this bridge and causeway was built in the 13th century to cross the river and its surrounding marshes between the villages of Swarkestone and Stanton by Bridge. It is 3/4 of a mile long and has 17 arches. It is the longest stone bridge in England and the longest inland bridge in England. The bridge is undersized for modern traffic and is scarcely 2-lane for cars at several points. Though there is a weight limit of 7.5 tons, the walls of the bridge often take damage from traffic. The bridge is a local accident black spot, with 15 reported road traffic accidents between 2008 and 2010. Swarkestone village has a very old church, a full cricket pitch, a plant nursery and garden centre, including a restaurant called Swarkestone Nursery, and the Crewe and Harper pub. The village also lies near the Trent and Mersey Canal, with locks and moorings. It was time to move on from Swarkestone and its impressive causeway, so I drove on to Ticknall, the village from where I would be starting my day's walk. Ticknall is a small village on the A514 with 3 pubs, several small businesses and a primary school. 200 years ago it was considerably larger and noisier, with lime quarries, tramways and potteries. Ticknall was an estate village to Calke Abbey until late in the 20th century. The breakup of the former estate has meant the sale of cottages and building land, changing not just the randomness of the architecture, but also the dilution of the former feudal relationship between the villagers and their somewhat reclusive lords of the manor. Near the entrance to Calke Abbey is Tramway Bridge, now a Grade 2 listed structure. It was built around 1802 by the Derbyshire engineer Benjamin Outram to carry the former Ticknall tramway and subsequently connect the brickyards and limeyards around the village to the Ashby Canal at Willardsley Basin. Although abandoned in 1915, the tramway can still be traced intermittently along its route, which passed through the estate of Calke Abbey, where 2 tunnels were needed. Throughout the village, several water pumps can be found. These sturdy and attractive cast iron devices were introduced into the village around 1914 by Sir Harper Crewe to provide fresh water. Several of these unusual pumps still work and are still used by walkers. St George's Church is a Grade 2 listed parish church built in 1842 by the architect Henry Isaac Stevens to replace the original church, which had been dedicated to St Thomas Becket. The old church was blown up with gunpowder and its ruins can still be seen in the present churchyard. Well, Ticknall is my favourite village in South Derbyshire. I only ever come here when my job brings me to the area. So today it's really nice to come here in my own time and spend more time exploring the lovely village. I'd had a good look around Ticknall, so now it was time for my walk. Starting from the village hall car park, I took a path leading behind the church and across the fields. The path soon led me along the edge of Windmill Wood. This is part of the National Forest, an environmental project in central England run by the National Forest Company. 200 square miles are being planted across areas of North Leicestershire, South East Staffordshire and South Derbyshire, in an attempt to blend ancient woodland with new plantings to create a new national forest. It stretches from the western outskirts of Leicester in the east to Burton-upon-Trent in the west, and is planned to link the ancient forests of Needwood and Charnwood. Reaching Hangman Stone, I turned left along a path leading me westwards. This path eventually came out onto a road where I was about to arrive at my next interesting location. Foremark Reservoir is owned by Severn Trent Water, which is also a 230-acre nature reserve open to the public for walking, fishing, birdwatching and horse riding. It is supplied from water from the River Dove, and it was constructed in the 1970s. The reserve has boasted 27 different varieties of butterfly, including the large skipper, the speckled wood, white letter hairstreak, small copper, holly blue and the brown argus. The reservoir is stocked with trout and is available for angling between the end of March and the middle of December. One reason for the plentiful fish might be the large abundance of aquatic invertebrates, including dragonfly larvae, water boatmen, great diving beetles, pond skaters, water scorpions and silver diving beetles. This is a very pleasant spot. You know, in all the years I've been coming to South Derbyshire for work, I don't think I've actually seen Foremark Reservoir before. Moving on from Foremark Reservoir, I took a path leading me through Lamont Wood. As I've been walking today, a lot of the fields have been quite waterlogged, and I just passed a couple of people who live locally, and they stopped to speak to me briefly. They were both wearing Wellington boots, and they were saying that the fields that they've been walking through are very waterlogged. That's where I'm heading next, so I'll be able to see for myself in a while. I must say though, today is the 12th of March, and it's more like a spring day. It's lovely. I've got no complaints whatsoever. Very pleasant indeed. Just before reaching the A514 again, just south of Ticknall, the path took me into Scaddo's Wood. I can remember from many years ago the Everest double glazing adverts with Ted Malt. Now, aside from being quite a well-known actor, Ted Malt was also a farmer. And that farm on the hillside in the background is Scaddo's farm, which used to be Ted Malt's farm. He spent a great deal of his life around here. He was from Derby, and after he died, he was buried in the churchyard in Ticknall. I crossed to the other side of the A514 and took a path which took me back to Ticknall very briefly, before I followed another path leaving the village again. As I crossed the fields, I was becoming more excited about where the walk would be leading me next. Now this is going to be, for me, probably the most interesting part of today's walk, because although I've been to Ticknall and the surrounding areas over 100 times, I have never actually been to this particular spot before, so I'm really looking forward to discovering it today for the very first time. So there we are, my very first view of Calke Abbey. Calke Abbey is a Grade 1 listed country house in the care of the Charitable National Trust. The house was owned by the Harper family for nearly 300 years, until it was passed to the Trust in 1985 in lieu of death duties. Today the house is open to the public, and many of its rooms are deliberately displayed in the state of decline in which the house was handed to the Trust. Calke Abbey is set in extensive parklands, landscaped to reflect the grandeur of the property, and any visit will be rewarded by a look around the gardens and a walk up to the church. The stables contain a range of agricultural and domestic relics in unrestored condition, with an underground passage to another range of agricultural buildings dating from the late 18th century, where there is now a shop and restaurant. Calke Abbey and the grounds are lovely. I'm really glad I came here today. Well, all I've got to do now is walk back to Ticknall. I soon had a view of Staunton Harold Reservoir, built in 1964 and owned by Severn Trent. It has a visitor centre and wildflower meadow. As I crossed more fields and passed through another wood, my path headed back to where I started my walk. Well, I'm arriving back in Ticknall, so that's the end of my walk now. And it's been really nice exploring South Derbyshire for a change, somewhere I don't normally come to in my own time. And it's been really nice walking around Ticknall, Foremark Reservoir, and in particular, my very first visit to Calke Abbey.